So right now, we are going into a conversation with Enygma Ventures, the Enygma Ventures team, Sarah Dusek, Jake Dusek, Sandras Phiri, and me. And so we'll talk about the program that we have, now, which is the Shift Fund for 20 million Rand. And so I'll let Jake and Sarah join the call now, and we'll talk about the funding. So somebody's asking, like, where do we put the links to the investors? On Startup Circles, we have the links to investors. So Startup Circles is the managed company of Enygma Ventures. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Great to have you here.
Great to be here.
Hello, Jake.
Hi there.
Just to tell everybody, Leah and a few other people asking, like, okay, where's Lelimba? Lelimba unfortunately won't join us now. Something just happened that she's rushed to. So we have Sarah and Jake. They are Enygma
All
Ventures.
Substitutes for Lelimba. That's what we are. And Sandras, I have to say, you bring us out after Steve Blank. How do we follow that?
It's a hard act to follow.
You're making this tough, man.
Why I brought you after Steve Blank? Because now, after Steve Blank, you bring in the money.
We bring the money. Yeah, everyone wants to talk about money.
That's right.
At least it wasn't
right.
Felix Lynn. Exactly. Yeah. I agree. At least it wasn't Felix. I am not going to be chopping through planks right now.
No. So somebody said, aren't they husband and wife? Shouldn't they be next to each other? Or are they practicing social
I know, we
distancing?
don't like sitting in the same room. No, no same rooms for us. But yes, we are.
Yes. Brilliant.
As you can tell, Jake will never get a word in edgeways otherwise. So he has to have his own room, so his own box, so he can speak occasionally.
Brilliant. So funny. Great. So we'll get straight into it. Let's start with Sarah. Tell us about Enygma. Just for the people who are coming across Enygma Ventures for the first time, tell us about Enygma Ventures and why Enygma. Why did you start it?
Yeah, Enigma. Why Enigma? Enigma is the result of a dream. Like many of you with dreams for creating a business, Jake and I had spent the last decade of our lives building a business in the US, built a large hospitality business that we sold at the end of 2018. Before we had sold it, though, like many of you, were ideas people. And thinking about what's next. You know, we've built something, sold it for almost $100 million, and what's next? And we had always thought, we had hated the investment process. We had done multiple rounds of raising money with investors. Honestly, they were all pain in the butt. Shouldn't say that out loud, but they were. And it was really difficult, really arduous, and really frustrating. And through those times, being entrepreneurs, wrestling with investors, we really felt like there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to do investment. And there's got to be a better, more equal, more fair, better way of partnering with entrepreneurs to help them fulfill their dreams. And so part of our dream, our next dream, was to think about how could we partner with entrepreneurs, share the learnings that we have had of building, scaling a business from nothing to actually selling it and executing it, and how do we help others live the dream.
Excellent. And with the launch of the Shift Fund.
Yes.
Jake, why do you think this is the right time to launch a fund like that?
Yeah, I think just like all of us are hearing today, that businesses really need to pivot if they're going to survive. We were thinking about as a fund, what would we do differently if we were launching right now? And I think the big thing we went away thinking was that this crisis has created kind of a window of opportunity where society is open to very large, sweeping change. And that window is open for maybe a few months, maybe a year, but the now is the time to basically decide what changes are going to happen. And so we want to find businesses and startups who have ideas that can build a better future. So all of those tired systems that all of us were tired of following, the ways we didn't like doing things before, now's the chance to reinvent those. So that's what we're hoping for.
Fantastic. Great. Great. Well, for everybody, you can type your questions that you want Sarah and Jake to answer. You can type your questions there. For this shift fund, how many businesses are you looking at? Investing in, or what? What's the outcome? What's the goal?
There's no real fixed number, but there is a round number available. So we've pledged 20 million rand at the first outpost, which we would expect maybe to be 20 to 30 businesses, possibly. Ideally, we're hoping that others will join us and co-invest with us so that we can fund more businesses. But that's kind of the initial thinking, and we'll see how it goes. If there's an exceptional amount of businesses that we think that should get funded, more than we think we can navigate, then we will do our best to try and make sure that everyone who needs funding gets funding.
Great. And another question is, isn't it risky to launch a fund now? Like everybody else is kind of like closing their checkbooks, and Enigma just invested now.
Always risky.
Yeah.
It's always risky being an investor. And I was saying to someone last week, actually, that being an investor is a bit like betting at the horse races, right? It's always risky placing a bet, and making investments is like placing a bet. But what you're looking for is you're looking for great horses and great jockeys. So yes, it's risky, but you reduce your risk and you make good bets by betting great people, great entrepreneurs who have incredible ideas and you believe who can execute, and horses that have great legs and great stamina. So that's what we're looking for: great businesses that have lots of potential and great jockeys to ride those businesses.
I think also as entrepreneurs, we learn to look at risk in two ways. So there's the risk of taking action, and then there's also the risk of inaction. And sometimes inaction is worse than action. I think in this case, that's one of those times.
That we can't bury our heads in the sand, and hope that,
and as Steve just said, he just said that there is a world to come after COVID-19, and now is the time to start shaping that world and to start investing for the future and building the companies of the future. And that's what we need to do today.
Absolutely. Great. And a question from Alice Kavatanzao says, what practical things have you done to run businesses with your spouses and not kill each other? And if children are involved, how's that worked out?
Well, Jake, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, our kids are under strict instructions not to come in the room right now, actually. So, yeah, I think providing you have complementary skills, I think focusing on that and what areas you each are good at, I think is the savior in that case.
Yeah, so top tips. Jake and I always understood our own strengths, do understand our own strengths, our own weaknesses, and our own blind spots, and recognizing when one of us is the expert in one area and the other is an expert in another area. And we have a little bit of overlap in the middle, but that's what works for us in terms of levering each other to help build something great.
Great. And yeah, for the other people who don't know us, actually, I work with Lelemba, who's my wife, who's about to be on this call. So Jake and Sarah, husband and wife, me and Lelemba, husband and wife, have been working on businesses for years. So exactly that, knowing what each other's, the other person's strengths are. And then when they're in their element, you just let them be and not trying to keep changing each other. I think that's something that has helped us as well. So another question is, this shift fund, is it just for women or men and women? And what's the focus? Which geographical areas are we looking at?
Yeah, it's open to both men and women. We, as many of you know, if you're aware of Enygma Ventures, have a definite gender bias. We are passionate advocates of equality and trying to do all we can to create inclusion and empowerment for women. And that will always be at our core. We wanted to open this up to both men and women because we see this as a seed fund to define our future. So we wanted to focus both men and women at the table because that's what we need for the world going forward, is both men and women coming to the table to create solutions for our future. But of course, we'll want to support both genders to help create our world, because we believe we need us both to build a better world.
Great. And another question. Yes, go ahead, Jake.
I was just going to say, in terms of location, the businesses that we will invest in from Enigma will be in Southern Africa, so SADC region. However, we're hoping that other investors will get involved who can support businesses outside of SADC.
We might even see founders that are outside of SADC, but that have solutions for SADC. So looking at it more broadly, but focused on building a better Africa, effectively.
Fantastic. And what role, on that note, what role do you see Africa playing in this future?
Well, Sandras,
yes.
As you and I both know, we've had this conversation many times before. We're both Wakanda fans, in that I believe, we believe very passionately at this time that this could be Africa's moment. This could be a moment in time where Africa gets to leapfrog. And we know the very real struggles, inequality, huge issues of poverty, and huge issues of access to resources is a massive issue for Africa. And there are so many big problems that need solving here. But I feel exceptionally hopeful in this moment that there's an opportunity for Africa to start being solutions for the world. And just as that crazy movie portrays Wakanda as having all the resources, all the technology, all the opportunities, and that is this special little hub that has the most advanced systems in the world, I believe we could make massive leapfrogs at this moment in time and start to make changes in society that could have taken decades, maybe hundreds of years to happen here. But there's an opportunity for dramatic change, dramatic impact on society because of what this is doing to us and the way we have to live. And I'm particularly proud at this moment of the incredible leadership that South Africa is playing in Africa, and how we're managing the crisis. And I believe there's an opportunity for Africa to lead, and there's an opportunity for Africa to rise up and show the world what we're capable of doing and bringing solutions that can be globally used across the globe. So that's what I'm super excited about. And I think we we need to believe that, and we need to believe we're capable of that, and that we can see extraordinary things come out of this time.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Typer 1, if you are feeling this and you are finding this to be useful and thinking about, yes, Wakanda forever.
Yeah.
Great. Jake, a question for you. What do you think would be the mindset of an entrepreneur, like in a crisis? What generally happens, and how should people think if you want to create something amazing?
Yeah, I think hearing Steve Blank's take on that was very interesting. I think entrepreneurs, just like everyone else, feel panic and like they wish they weren't in this situation. And I think you need to feel that, and before you can move on to whatever's next. But I think facing those fears and the reality of what might happen is where you need to start. And then thinking about what could the future look like if we could learn from the past, I think is maybe where we should all start. What would a more equal society look like? What are opportunities that are being made more obvious by this crisis? And we already mentioned some industries that kind of took hold of that, which were education with online education, some schools making that shift very quickly, which has been something that they've been kind of pondering for a decade. But then suddenly within days, they can make a complete shift. The same with healthcare, where telemedicine is something that's been being pondered for decades, but never really been adopted. But then suddenly within days, an entire country can switch to using telemedicine very widely. I think that same type of opportunity is open to far more industries than just the ones we've seen so far. Another obvious one that I think will have to happen soon is government e-services. There's still huge need for the services, but if people can't go in person, how can they do that? And there's a huge number of businesses that have lots of opportunity for things that we used to take, just assume had to be done face to face. Maybe now they don't, and maybe we don't need to spend the time commuting or waiting in lines or all of those sorts of things. But I think the implications are much broader than that, and I'm excited to see the ideas that come in from all of you.
Fantastic. There's a question from Grace James, Grace Abinant James. Would you fast track a solution that's needed now, regardless of your funding timeline?
Needed now in the sense that we really need this business to happen right now to help us live in lockdown. Is that the question, Grace? I'm assuming so.
Yes, that's the question.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Yes, I think the answer is yes to that question. If we think beyond a lockdown scenario, because obviously we're all hoping we aren't going to live in lockdown forever, but that our world will be different post-lockdown, and maybe we're going to have social distancing in our lives for a while to come, and the way we do life is going to be different. I think if we believe the solution will exist beyond a lockdown period, absolutely. We're not going to be funding things like making masks right now. Other people are on that. Other people are funding ventilators being manufactured, etc., etc. So those kind of solutions are not for us, but solutions that we think have legs and will be part of our future going forward from here, absolutely yes.
Yeah, I think if we thought of this in terms of like a natural disaster, like an earthquake, this fund is not for emergency management, like going out and rescuing people or finding buildings that are damaged and that sort of thing. This is a fund for rebuilding.
Rebuilding.
We're talking about rebuilding what the future looks like.
We'll take DLB's question, which is, would you be willing to invest in businesses that are registered in Africa but operational in New York?
I think it depends what it is. Yeah. If it's an African company providing a solution for the world that is scalable, and, that's a Wakanda moment, potentially, right there. Taking something of Africa and making it, serving the world. Yeah. Why not?
Great. And then Jack is asking, presuming 20 companies were accepted for funding, could we get an indication as to what stage of business is expected and what sort of equity would be expected broadly?
Yeah, so two maybe different phases there. I think if you're really, really, really early stage and you're at ideation, very early on in your thinking, starting to do business, just haven't quite validated the business yet. What we'll look to do is sponsor a whole bunch of businesses to go through Startup Circles validation. Just give me the program. It's gone out of my mind, Sandras. Give me the name of the program.
Launch. The program is
Startup
called
Launch. There we go.
Yeah.
So we'll be sponsoring folks to go through the launch program, which hopes to get you through ideation, validation, and come out the other side with a business that's viable, acquiring customers, etc., etc. So that's one phase. So that means you might not be ready for funding yet, but you could come through the other side and still get some funding to sort of spur you on. And then there are those that are doing business, have acquired customers, have validated their business already, and just need some more seed funding to grow and to build on what they've already got. And that's probably the place for some seed funding. Seed funding could look like anything from R1 million to 5 million rand. That kind of parameter, probably. Is that fair to say, Jake? Is that kind of? Yeah, that's probably what we're looking at for sort of early, very, very early stage seed funding. Hoping to do as many of those as we can.
Fantastic. Thank you for this, and thank you for taking time today, and thank you for actually being very agile as Enigma. Yeah, we had different plans in Jan and Feb, March. Exactly.
We love a good pivot.
Exactly. Thanks for this pivot. That's saving Africa and saving the world. Thank you. Wow, a lot of people are not certain what to do. As Enigma said, what do we do? Because we're entrepreneurs and we're investors. So thank you for that. What would be your last words of advice to entrepreneurs and people on this call?
I think mine would be, this is a time to be hopeful. I think it's very easy for us to be afraid. I think it's very easy to allow uncertainty to make us feel cautious and make us feel gloomy about the future. But I actually believe this is a moment in time to be hopeful. We will overcome COVID-19. It may take us a while, but we will overcome. And really, this is a moment for us to rise up and say, I'm going to be part of rebuilding the future. We have suffered a massive blow. We will suffer more blows in the future to come. I'm sure of it. But now is a moment for us to say, we're going to rebuild. And what do we want to take with us into the future world? What do we want to change? What do we want to make better? What do we want to solve? And I believe this is a moment where we could solve some enormous problems and make dramatic changes, very rapidly. And so let's be hopeful. Let's be hopeful. Let's start to imagine, and let's start to execute and make it happen.
Thank you. Jake?
Yeah, I think I would echo that. I think even when we're feeling panic and you can't see very far ahead, just remember there's always something beyond that horizon. So I'm excited that about the opportunity, and that there, I think just the unprecedented of this opportunity as well, that it's maybe been 3 generations since the world has all at once been able to kind of look at things and say, reimagine what this world could look like, and let's make it that way. So yeah.
Great.
Let's go do
Thank
it,
you very
guys.
much.
Let's make it
Yes.
happen.
Yes. Great. So thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And thank you, Sarah and Jake.
Our pleasure.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Have a fantastic weekend, Sarah and Jake.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.